minutes past 8.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Well, a big old show is rolling its way towards New Zealand. A couple of shows in Auckland and in Wellington. It is called Beyond the Darkside. It's been called the ultimate Pink Floyd experience, put together by a bunch of guys who've got to be said are absolutely geeky about Pink Floyd and so specific about everything on stage, not only the sound but also the lighting, the visuals, everything that goes into it must be exact to the Pink Floyd standards. And the chap, the mastermind behind it all, is Kevin Hunt, joining us in Brisbane, where it's far too early in Brisbane this morning. Good morning to you, Kevin.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, obviously, huge Pink Floyd fan, right? You wouldn't be doing this otherwise.
No, I've been doing it for 20 years now, yeah.
When did the bug bite you?
It's been biting me since I was a teenager, basically. I remember when I was younger, getting my record player and wearing out albums night after night.
Can you remember the very first time you heard some Pink Floyd?
Yeah, I think it was about 9, and my father was actually building his home, and I used to go and help him on a weekend, and I started to make friends with one of the guys over the back when we were both young, just playing, and yeah, he sort of used to take me up to his place, and he used to always play Wish You Were Here. It was the first time I was introduced to it.
And so did it get you interested in playing music as well?
Yeah, well, what really caught my attention was the musical side of it, because he was playing the album Wish You Were Here, and as you know, it starts with Shine On, and it's very heavy in the musical introduction as it is.
Yeah,
and it was the musical side that's really caught me about Pink Floyd more than anything.
And so it led you to picking up a guitar, or what did you play?
I played bass at first.
Yeah.
It was the first instrument because that's what my father played.
Yeah.
So he was sort of keen for me to get into music. So they bought me a bass when I was 9. And it all sort of led from there. It wasn't something that I was really looking for at the time. It's just like I said, it was just the musical content.
Yeah.
It really grabbed me.
So did you go about yourself about playing originals, or did you go stop and go, nah, why don't we play the stuff we already know that sounds good?
No, well, because I come from the UK originally.
Yeah.
I did start on the original scene. Like most original bands out there, though, you do sort of, within your original band that you form, you tend to play other songs that you want to sort of end up the band sounding like.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was. I think one of the first songs I have actually learnt on guitar, which is when I sort of moved from the bass a bit later on, was Another Brick in the Wall.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Classic. Absolutely classic. And so when did the actual this Pink Floyd type experience or spectacular start?
Well, I moved from the UK. I emigrated in about 1986, and when I came to Australia, I'd only been really used to being in original bands. I moved to Brisbane, and at that stage it was pretty well, the industry here was not really that big at all as far as originals. You really had to be down in Melbourne or Sydney. Being a musician, I sort of got caught up with my uncle, who's actually in my show as well. He found out that I could play keyboards.
Yeah.
So he basically dragged me along, and the next thing I know, I'd only been out here 5 minutes, and I'm doing about 10 shows a week.
Wow. It's such is the demand for something like this.
Well, it was just, I can't really explain it. It's just a different industry here. I suppose being so remote in the world,
yeah,
that's how these covers and tribute bands really developed down here.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people didn't come here. I mean, Pink Floyd have only been to Australia twice in 20 years between the two visits.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something that's really, people get many chances of. It's how the tribute industry really formed here. Well,
I suppose there's this need from the fans, though, for the music to keep on living on, not only on record, but in that live sense. And it's something, of course, that the band is unable to provide and do. Across not only for Pink Floyd, but I guess for many bands that existed back perhaps in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
How accurate is this performance? Because I've heard that people will be at this gig and would not be able to tell it from the real thing.
Well, basically, when we started, we were basically starting with learning most of the songs from the original albums. At that stage, there really wasn't anything live. I remember when I first came here, A Momentary Lapse of Reason had not long been released. It had been quite a while since the world. There had been the breakup. There had been a terrible fight between Roger and David. It didn't really look like much was going to be happening anymore.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, out of the blue, came A Momentary Lapse of Reason.
Yeah.
And it was around that time that I was just sort of sitting around, wondering what I could really do. I'd been on tour around doing all these covers and what have you, and I wasn't enjoying it at all. There was been playing styles that I really didn't suit me.
Yeah.
I sat down. It took quite a while to decide what I was going to do. I decided to do Pink Floyd more or less straight away. I just wasn't quite sure whether it was the kind of music that would really go down very well.
Well, it obviously does, because, I mean, it's so damn popular.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
The first time we played, and we actually did it, we realised how popular it was.
Yeah.
I remember it was around 1990. I remember going out on stage for the first time, and it was a Thursday night. My manager at the time didn't really know what to expect, and it was packed.
Yeah.
And the strangest thing was that there was all this talk like, oh, don't know about Pink Floyd, people, they won't be dancing, they won't be drinking kind of thing. And as it turned out, it was totally the opposite. They were just sitting there watching for 2.5 hours, and they did nothing but, and took the biggest bar take, and that was basically the first time we played.
But along with Pink Floyd, there's this slight geek culture, and I don't mean geek in a negative sense at all. But there's this slight geek culture that goes with it. I know that the Auckland Stardom Observatory, they have nights where staring into the sky and playing the whole Pink Floyd album along with that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it sounds like that this geek culture goes into your performance as well, where everything has to be exact, right down to the lighting and the sound and everything. But that sounds to me like it would be awfully expensive.
It is, and it's very time-consuming too. One of the things about Pink Floyd that we discovered when we first sat down to do it, like we'd been programming this for quite a while, and then all of a sudden MTV came on with The Delicate Sound of Thunder, and we remember watching it that night and thinking, well, how the hell, why the hell have we picked this?
Yeah.
And, as it turns out, we did more and more study. At that time, it was about 1989 when I first started looking at it. The internet was new.
Yeah.
Basically, you got on the internet and all you got was text. And I used to do a lot of reading, and we were tracking down, because the first time we started doing it, we realised that the sound was always presented in surround sound.
Right, yeah.
And got onto the internet and started reading about this, and apparently they'd been doing surround sound since 1972.
Wow.
One of the things most bands, we've seen quite a few bands around the world now that do this, but none of them have grasped the fact that Pink Floyd have never, since Darkside of the Moon, played on a stereo system.
Yeah.
They've only ever played in surround sound. The surround sound was then, like when they recorded Darkside, it was recorded in quadraphonic, but they've also done their PAs with 6 stacks around the room.
Crikey.
And that's the first thing we learnt is that when Dolby, which is a famous sound system, we were checking the surround sounds. There was 9 patents in the world at that time, and 12, but 9 of them were owned by Pink Floyd.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So it shows that when you start getting into Dark Side of the Moon and you start watching these things, technology is just something that has always been a forefront with Pink Floyd.
Yeah, and so I would imagine when Pink Floyd were doing this, that they, it would have been like, I suppose, U2, where they have a whole jumbo jet full of equipment. So how do you manage all this kind of stuff?
Well, it's been quite funny, because it's like a bug. The more you get into this, the more you sort of get hooked.
Well, is it like the person who decorates their house every Christmas with Christmas lights, and it just gets
Yeah, I guess that is one way of looking at it. What we started to discover, like I said, we watched Delicate, and on this video you got all these lasers and all these moving lights, the screen, and it's very interactive. It's a complete media show, and this is going back to 1970. Was it? No, 1987. And at that time, it was just mind-blowing. I mean, I remember we were sitting there watching this thing on the couch when it just appeared, and I thought, how the hell am I going to do this? I actually started going around to have a look to see how we could get one of these moving lights. We knew that it was going to be sort of expensive and pretty impossible. But I was just lucky enough at the time that there was a local company called Acoustic Technologies, and I went and was talking to these people, and they were talking about putting my sound system together for me. At the same time, when I was talking about, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do about the lighting, he said, oh, come here, and he took me out the back.
Yeah.
He said, are these any good to you? And I looked, and right there in front of me, he had about 36 of these digitals.
Right.
And this is going back a very long time now. So when we started first doing this, we were actually going around the country playing in places and turning up with trucks that were actually sometimes bigger than the venue.
Or bigger than the town. No doubt. Look, we're going to wrap up, but what about the permission to actually do all this? Does it have to come from a record company, or how does this work?
Well, basically, you have to apply for licenses. It's getting more and more difficult lately, as most Pink Floyd bands are experiencing there, because the music's actually classed as like an operatic work.
Right.
So a lot of us have all been stamped on recently, telling us that we're not allowed to play things properly from beginning to end. So you have to study, to get around that properly, you have to study the album, and you just have to make a slight change here and there.
Crazy.
It's not anything that's really noticeable, but it's just something that you have to do.
And you didn't have to pay royalties to anyone?
Yeah, you pay your royalties.
Yeah.
We're all paying our royalties. There's some things that you can apply for licenses for, and there's just some things that when you apply for licenses are just non-viable.
Yeah. Oh, well, absolutely fascinating stuff. There is 2 shows in New Zealand. This Saturday, the 12th of February, at the Civic in Auckland, and then on Friday, the 18th of February, at the TSB Arena in Wellington. Tickets from $95 up to $120, depending on where you're sitting. Bound to be an entertainment spectacular. Thanks so much, Kevin Hunt, for joining us so early there in Brisbane and telling us all about it.
No problem.
Time now here on Kiwi, 26 minutes past 8. Got a track from Fredericks Brown. This here is called Hail Mary Boy. It's Kiwi.